Thrive Radio. I'm your host, Amy Montgomery, entrepreneur and digital marketing agency owner. Today, my guest is Ramin Lamei. He is a cybersecurity expert with over 20 years of experience. He has held significant roles for Fortune 500 companies, contributing to multi-billion-dollar revenues, managing extensive secured financial transactions. He now leads TechCompass, where he helps businesses of all sizes secure their digital operations and achieve strategic growth. Today, we'll talk about how companies can protect themselves in an increasingly digital world. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Love to be on.
So can you start a little bit, tell us about your background and how you got into the field of cybersecurity?
Sure. So when I had graduated from college, I had specialized in electrical engineering. And within 5 minutes of graduating, I realized I didn't want to do that and was hovering towards IT. And security was a really good opportunity that I figured out, I would say within a few years of my career, was going to be an area that's going to be expanding. More opportunities are going to be coming as more companies become aware of the requirements around cybersecurity, as regulations go up. And so I saw it as an opportunity and just leaned into it. It was either that or storage. So I at least picked the more exciting one between the two.
Yeah, definitely. From your perspective, what are some of the biggest cybersecurity challenges that small to medium-sized businesses are facing?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? Because you're going to get a different opinion depending on who you ask. For me, my background was corporate. So I spent 13 years in my last company, which was a very large company, corporate type of problems, right? Being a consultant for a little over a year, supporting more the small to medium space, I've gotten a lot of exposure to a lot of different companies and a lot of different verticals. And there are some common trends you do see, right? Cybersecurity, I would say, is a pretty good trend for the size of the company, right? In the small to medium-sized businesses, they have less investment in those, right? Probably not have risk models where they can understand what is the risk that the company faces and then how do they manage those, right? A lot of cybersecurity, especially for a SaaS-based company, those are top of mind.
For a business that doesn't know where to start with cybersecurity, what steps should they start to take to assess their current risk level?
Yeah, and that's a really good question, right? A lot of companies in the small to medium-sized business don't have a whole lot of regulations, so it might not be compliance driven why they're looking at cybersecurity. It could be risk driven. A good way to think about it is you're not managing risk as a company. Cybersecurity is going to be a good place to start, right? Your digital footprint, as that expands, you're using more cloud services, your employees are more remote using a lot of different services. You have risk there. And if you're not managing that, chances of you having a mature program throughout your organization managing risk is going to be unlikely, right? So it's a good place to start. And have some questions when you want to start figuring out how to manage that risk. Ask questions like, what are your risks? What should you be worried about? And that's where I think there's a good opportunity to bring in a third party to partner with you to say, all right, what are you trying to understand? And understand your requirements based on what you're trying to achieve, and then support you with having the subject matter expertise in that area, right? Cybersecurity is not going to be a company is going to necessarily hire in-house and have a whole department to manage, right? So they're going to work with outside partners that they want to need versus some kind of general cookie cutter approach.
So once they've gone through that assessment and they figured out their risks, how do you help them develop a roadmap to make them more secure, positive?
Yeah. Our engagement model is very much a partnership model, right? Kind of building upon what I was just talking to. So when we engage with someone, our goal is to understand them, understand their business, understand where they are, and then help come up with a vision where they're trying to go, right? Fill in the details based on understanding them, right? So we understand their industry. We understand, do they have any compliance requirements that they have to achieve as part of their programs? We understand what their services are and how their business operates so that we can better understand how to set up a model that's appropriate for them, right? This is an area where, general models just don't work. You have to align cybersecurity in terms of like controls and how you address it based on how an org runs, right? It's not just tools and tech. So it's very much understanding them and then working with them to understand where their current state is. As you mentioned, an assessment is very much something we can perform. We can go very deep. We can keep it very high level to just get a sense of where they are in terms of a program or in terms of risk, and then help them create a model or roadmap to get to a desired state. And then what are those initiatives? What are those actions they can take to get there? And then what kind of investment is it needed? And then recommend whether it's better to build it in-house provider or other options to get to the outcomes that they want to.
So can you explain how you're able to support businesses through that implementation process of all of their cybersecurity strategies?
Yeah. So our overall goal or role is to be a partner. So we're not going to try to be the solution for every one of the remediation or actions that they need to take, right? Sometimes they may need a tool, sometimes they might need a managed service provider. We're not going to be those, right? So our goal is to overall be an advisor and partner to help them get from point A to point B and then support them throughout that journey and then support them as their business continues to grow and scale. So we think long terms in terms of like how to engage them. And then with our partners that we do work with, if they want a recommendation for a product or service, where we can definitely make recommendations, but that's not our main area.
Let's talk about ransomware. That's a major concern. I think that most businesses understand a little bit of what that is. What are some steps that they could take to prepare and respond to a ransomware attack? And for maybe those that don't even know what that is, maybe you can give a little bit of description.
Sure. Ransomware, from what we see, is a topic that's really top of mind for the small to medium businesses. Right? They have a lot of questions around what is it? Am I susceptible to it? If I get it, what happens? Those are some of the areas where we get engaged. And they're very much at the beginning, we're helping educate them, right? We're educating them in terms of what is ransomware, which is basically malware, right? Where a user can get through browsing the internet and clicking on a link. It can happen through like phishing email and being able to get it, or other ways a bad actor could target a company and try to land essentially malware there. From getting a footprint into an environment where there's computers connected, it can spread, right? And it can start going throughout your network and locking down essentially your data, right? And then locking you out of your systems where now they have the key essentially, which is where they encrypt your data. They now have the key to unencrypt it and they put it out to you as a ransom, right? Are you willing to now pay for this key to get your data back? If a company doesn't have backups, for example, doesn't have a whole lot of choices to get back that data, right? So their only option, it sounds like, could be to pay it. They don't have proper backups, right? These are also not security directly related problems, right? That's just good hygiene to back up your data so you have it in multiple places. Then when you think, how do I securely back up, right? Then it's make sure that backup is immutable, meaning where you're backing it up cannot be infected by the ransomware. So these are some good security hygienes to then also think about when you do have different capabilities and you want to make sure you're covering yourself, that are you doing them correctly? A lot of times companies don't know their risk in terms of how susceptible they are, which we like to help paint that picture. So we'll give them a percentage. We'll say you're an 80%, you get a B, and here are the opportunities how you can get to closer to 100, right? Where you can protect yourself. Maybe you don't have security awareness training for your users and they don't know to not open phishing emails and click on them, right? So maybe you don't have a good point protection that's monitoring your endpoints that even they can quarantine and remediate that pretty. So those are the areas where our goal is to help them paint a picture, understand what it looks like, and then what are their options to get better.
And also, I'll say just from a practical perspective, I was dealing with this week with a client that this is the very first time we've ever run Facebook ads for his organization. First time he's on Facebook. We just created a Facebook page. There's not really any posts on there. And we started to run some ads for his business. And when you do that, at least right now, there's so much spam on Facebook. There's so many, all of these like messages you get that you're now in violation and all of this. So we were getting all of these violation things. We also got Facebook's AI marking some of our ads as pornography when it was pictures of family. It's like wild. So I had to
Weird.
take that.
Yeah.
So I had been on the on chat with them for an hour the night before, and then the next day he gets an email. It looks like it's from Facebook saying that his content has violations. And I'm like, wait a minute, I just talked to them for a full hour. And they were saying that everything is fine. And he was asking me if it was spam. And it was spam. I'm like, I went to the Facebook's website just to verify their emails. I'm like, these are the emails that are legit. And this is it. And on the email that was sent, it was like from an app. But it looked very legit. And I think that it's easy just to, especially when it comes to the social media stuff, even because then what would happen if he clicked on that link or replied to them, then they wanted to hack his ad account and they want to hack the ad account so that they have the credit card information. So yeah, people just don't realize that.
Yeah, I like that you're security minded, right? You're thinking in the right way where you're suspicious.
Hmm.
And this is an industry, especially in like small to medium business, where the biggest risk to these companies from a cybersecurity perspective is access to their data, right? Getting some kind of ransomware where it shuts down their service or operation.
Hmm.
And then in terms of just overall engagement, right? Like just being secure minded or wire fraud was the other one I was going to mention. Sometimes we get wire fraud that leverages even voice calls now, right? You can make ways using current technologies to try to commit wire fraud. And once those things happen, there's impact to these companies, right? And
Yeah.
there's different ways to plan and think. And that's where a partner can also help you just apply good security hygiene to your current operations, right? Like we help companies come up with better process around their financials, right? Even though that's not directly a security IT problem, right? That's more just hygiene, baking security practices into financial transactions, right? That a company operates by.
How important is cybersecurity insurance for businesses? I didn't even know that cybersecurity insurance existed. And what should they consider in looking for a policy?
Yeah, good question. And the way I think about cybersecurity insurance is it's just like what it sounds like. It is essentially a some kind of a cushion in terms of like financially that if you do have an event that you could be covered for and compensated, right? So there's different kinds of coverages, right? And there's different depths to those coverages. I will tell you though, it's harder and harder, right? Insurance providers are also getting more involved in making sure that you do have a cybersecurity program, right? Sometimes they require you to have some kind of assessment, some kind of a test or vulnerability scan where before they even give you coverage because they see that the risk goes up for them if you don't have good hygiene or security practices already. But as you balance risk, if you have an incident, and incidents are expensive to deal with as well, especially when you work with third parties, getting your services restored, that could be costly. So that insurance could be a way for you to manage and plan for those. So it's very proactive to go look, ask your questions, see if it's the right thing for you to do, and then ask yourself, how are you going to respond to an event if it does happen? If it's that equation for you. I highly recommend it as a not as a safety net, but as a tool to protecting a company.
What is involved in an attack surface and application penetration test, and why is it crucial for a business?
Yeah. So sometimes cyber insurance or other requirements or just good security hygiene, people will perform not only assessments, but testing of their software, right? Or their controls, right? And that's what penetration tests are. So these are more security type of tests where a bad actor is going to try to break into your application, your code, or your environment to see what are your current weaknesses. And the type of test is to get a report and an understanding of where you are in terms of your external footprint, what the internet sees, how you're connected, and see where your weaknesses are so you can improve them. A lot of times when companies do these, they're very much a point in time test, right? So they're good to do on like an annual basis to get a snapshot of where are your weaknesses so that you can create initiatives to get better. You definitely want to do them if you write code. I think it's always risky if you're not testing your code, making sure that you're addressing any kind of exploits or vulnerabilities, and just having good practices around code development. There's different kinds of tests as well. There's different flavors, just like anything else, whether you're trying to perform it for a web application, a compliance environment, just good hygiene, vulnerability scanning, where it's just more understanding what your footprint looks like. But they're important to give you that feedback so that you know how to strategize your improvements around your cybersecurity footprint.
How can businesses benefit from virtual or fractional CISO leadership?
Yeah, so there's two ways to think about the fractional or the interim roles, right? So the role is meant to help you build a program or mature a program. And whether you need that for an ongoing basis or you want that for a period of time. A lot of times for the interims, we do them to help program, set it up on a roadmap, and then sometimes we help hire for that role to be on an ongoing basis to support them. The fractional ones are where you just need that to be a couple hours a month. You need advisory support. There's few initiatives. There's not enough for a full-time role. But the overall goal for those roles are to have a strategy, to have a program, and how manage it in the right direction.
So if you're able to give yourself one piece of advice when you first started out, what would it be?
That's a good question. I would say iterate a little bit more quickly. To me, coming from the corporate side, you have a different pace that you grow your career and you adapt to. As an entrepreneur having your own business, it's a very different pace and speed where you're iterating and learning how to better engage and support your clients. And that would be my advice as I'm learning every day how to be better as an entrepreneur.
Love that. So, Ramin, if there are individuals that would love to work with you, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find us on LinkedIn or go to our website, techcompass.us, and send a message. And we'd love to, get on a call with you just to meet you and, let you know about what we do. If they're for us to work together, that'd be great.
Perfect. I'll put your links down below. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your expertise.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed the conversation and I can't wait for it to come out.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're listening, you want more information about this podcast and upcoming shows, you can visit acalltothrive.com. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week.